All right, is the Prime Minister of this country a serious person? Should we take him seriously? That's the question. That's one of the questions, many questions surrounding the Prime Minister. And when somebody continues to act the way like it's business as usual, when they don't change their behavior at all, even in a time of crisis, and they continue to act the way that they always have, it's hard to take somebody seriously. The Prime Minister last night, during a meeting of or a gathering of party faithful of his MPs, a holiday tradition as Parliament rises. It's meant to be a lighthearted evening, but it's not lighthearted. It's a very serious situation going on in Ottawa. Yet he jokes and about it being a family affair, saying we're like any family, and families fight around Christmas time, and expects to have some levity surrounding this. There's no levity in what's going on in Ottawa right now. It's not a family. This is government. These are elected officials. These are people who we are relying on to govern this country. And when it is utter chaos, and that's what it is, and it's apparent that decisions that are being made there's no rhyme or reason, then I don't think that it's an opportunity to be lighthearted and to have levity. I don't think that's the proper response at all. And it makes me think that this is not a serious guy. What else can you deduce from it? I just think that he has just proven time and time again that he has got to go. Look, I know that some of you out there like Trudeau and feel as though that people like me and others in the media are piling on, and people calling this talk show are just piling on. But what do you expect? I just don't know how you can take this guy seriously. Again, he's walking around like it's business as usual. I don't understand. I don't get it. And another issue, of course, are these tariffs that are very serious right now that it appears as though Donald Trump is going to follow through on. I mean, we hope that he backs off, and I guess that many feel as though he will, that this is part of the art of the deal, if you will, and this is just part of his routine. But look, what if he doesn't? What then? And as of now, there's no action plan to deal with this. Parliament is not reconvening until after January 20th. I think it's the 27th of January. And Trump's being inaugurated on the 20th of January and says that he will put into action these tariffs immediately. One of the first things that he'll do. And the Tories are calling for action on this, and they are looking for a motion before the House of Commons to try and schedule meetings to deal with this. And I think that they absolutely should. Starting the week of January 6th. The Conservatives called on Tuesday for the House Trade Committee to hold hearings, starting, as mentioned, January 6th through to Trump's inauguration, and it should be priority one. And the fact that the Liberals have said no, so what are they going to do? Just hope for the best? Is that the plan? Leave it up to the premiers? Is that the plan? I mean, show some leadership here, Mr. Prime Minister. This is an opportunity. I know that times are tough right now for you. And the fact that he canceled all his media interviews, including with the CBC, is really another tell that this guy is not a serious person at all. Canceled all his media interviews, went in hiding the last couple days, didn't show his face during question period. Unbelievable. How could he not show his face during question period? I just think that this is not a serious guy. So that's one of the questions that I'm going to ask you. Do you think that the Prime Minister of this country should be taken seriously? Is he a serious person? Or is it all an act when all is said and done? Has his whole routine, his whole shtick just been an act all along? I mean, again, how he cannot see fit to deal with this tariff issue. I know that everybody wants a break, and he wants to hide, and he wants to get away and probably going to prorogue Parliament when it rises again on late January, because that'll be another opportunity for him to hide. But I just don't understand what could be possibly going through his mind right now. I really can't. I can't figure it out. It's a mystery. So we're going to open the phone lines today between noon and 1. I'll get your take on this or anything else you want to talk about. I got other things in the pile as well that we can get to. And, I look forward to hearing from many of you. Dr. John Gillis will be by for house calls between 11 and 12, taking your health-related questions. So look forward to hearing from many of you for house calls as well. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass at the control boards. Doing a fine job as always. And again, thanks so much for tuning in and listening. All right, I saw this story recently on the CTV website. While the use of cigarettes has declined in the 21st century, there has been a rapid increase in the use of electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes and other vaping devices with little known about the effects on users. Now researchers at Dalhousie University are using an old testing method to help them learn more about how these devices affect lung function in young adults. Joining me to talk about all of this is Sanja Stanojevic, an associate professor in Dalhousie University's Department of Community Health and Epidemiology. Sanja, hopefully I pronounced your name okay. Stanojevic, that's it, isn't it?
Close enough. Thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me on your show.
All right, absolutely. All right, so tell us about, first off, the sample size of e-cigarettes. How long have these things been around?
So they've actually been around for many decades. They were introduced originally as a smoking cessation device, so a way to help people remove the harmful effects of tobacco cigarettes and still get the nicotine delivered through these e-cigarettes. It's only recently in the last 5 to 10 years that we've seen a surge in people who had never previously used tobacco cigarettes using e-cigarettes. And what's been most alarming is it's young people. So typically people in the high school years starting to use these products and then becoming addicted to nicotine as they age through into adulthood.
Okay, so is that a concern? I mean, obviously, the sample size is not very big at this point when it comes to time, and perhaps that is always cause for concern. We don't have a 20, 30, 40-year sample size here, and the unknowns are always an issue or always a concern. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, exactly, and that's where we started. We know that smoking is the most harmful exposure that we can expose our lungs to, and so truthfully, anything is safer than cigarette smoke. But what we don't know is how harmful are these products, and is there any harm at all? How long do you have to use them? How much do you have to use these products before we can start to see these effects? When we first started studying cigarette smoke, it took us 30, 40 years before we started to detect changes in the lungs, started to see incidents of cancers, and started to be able to look at these effects. And so with something new like e-cigarettes, as a researcher who studies the lungs, I'm worried we can't wait 40 years. And so we started to get creative. And how might we ask these questions about whether e-cigarettes are safe in individuals who had never used tobacco cigarettes before? And how would we measure that? What are the tests that we can use that align best with our hypotheses in terms of how we think if there's any damage, how that damage might be happening and where in the lung it's happening, and trying to match the way we do the research to the mechanisms or our understanding of what the potential harms might be.
All right, so tell us about the lung clearance index.
Right, so this is a test that's existed for a long time, but it's only recently been used more in clinical settings. But it's a test that measures how efficiently the lungs work, essentially. So if you can imagine, every breath that we take in a healthy lung, we expect the air to go everywhere in the lungs, to evenly distribute throughout the lung. And we kind of get a sense that the lungs are working as they should. When we see individuals with lung diseases, obstructive lung diseases, what happens is their small airways start to close, whether through inflammation or scarring or damage, and that distribution of air becomes patchier. So we're able to measure whether the air is going everywhere in the lung. And in the study that we did comparing the e-cigarette users to the healthy controls or people who don't use e-cigarettes, we were starting to see differences in lung clearance index or the ventilation of the lung, where e-cigarette users had worse lung function compared to our healthy group.
Okay, so again, kind of back to the basics, right, I suppose?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, some of the breathing tests that we have available clinically are really designed to diagnose lung disease. Oftentimes you diagnose lung disease when it's well established. And so we have tools available to us that aren't necessarily used routinely, but certainly have existed and are available to measure different parts of the lung and to understand kind of how the lungs are working and where the damage might be. And that's what makes the study unique in that we were able to see these differences much earlier than we would have if we used traditional tests. And it gives us some insight into how we're going to study the effects of e-cigarettes moving forward. So I think a big question people have is whether the damage is permanent. So now we need to follow people longitudinally over years to see what happens when people quit. Does the lung function improve? If people continue to use e-cigarettes, do we see a progressive worsening? And what we can do now is understand what types of measures to use so that we can get information and get these answers faster.
Sanja, what are your instincts? And perhaps you're not willing to speculate on instincts. I know that you're probably empirically driven, as most scientists are, and people in your and rightfully so. But what do your instincts tell you if you have any to share about e-cigarettes and vaping at this point?
So I've been very surprised by what I've heard from our participants and community members. So as a scientist, I had no idea how people were using these devices. So we relied a lot on the community to tell us and help us in designing the study and understanding how we should ask the questions and do the work. And in chatting with them, we've learned that they have very common symptoms, so respiratory symptoms like coughing, phlegm production, trouble breathing when they're walking up hills or upstairs. And these are normal symptoms to have in young individuals who are otherwise healthy. And so I think that people are curious. They want to have it. They want to know information. And I think as a community, as scientists, we can't necessarily give people the magic answer. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but if we can provide them with information in accessible ways, at least they can make informed decisions and think about what's right for them. And I think up until now, or up until very recently, there's been very little information out there at all. And so people have been making decisions about whether to use these products or what to do based on what they see on social media, not necessarily from reputable organizations like Health Canada or other organizations. And so we really need to improve the information that's out there.
We hear a lot about youth vaping, and again, I don't have any empirical data in front of me, but certainly anecdotally, we hear a lot of it from teachers, a lot of middle school students at very young ages, people vaping, kids. What type of concern do you have when it comes to youth vaping?
So as somebody who studies the lung, knowing about what happens across your life course, anything that we're exposed to during childhood is going to have lifelong effects on our lung health. So children's lungs are still developing, and it's concerning just in general that they're consuming or inhaling substances which we really don't know very much about. The numbers of youth that are vaping are also quite concerning. As you mentioned in your introduction, we've had such tremendous success in reducing the amount of tobacco cigarette smoke in our young people, and to see them becoming dependent on new nicotine devices is quite worrying. And I am interested in the lung. There is other research happening in other areas of medicine that are showing similar challenges and effects on other parts of the body system. And so I think, again, we need to get information out to young people. We need to give them reputable information. We need to be telling them about e-cigarettes, just like we tell them about tobacco cigarette smoking. And what we heard from young people is that they're not getting that information, not at schools, not in their communities. And we need to do better at getting information out there.
Yeah, and it seems to me that when vaping products came out, there was the narrative was that they were safe, that there no smoke, that there wasn't the heat, and they were kind of promoted, at least my perception, as being healthy. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that, or what was your perception of that?
It's hard to know because there wasn't a lot of evidence to support those statements. And so, as I mentioned, as a smoking cessation tool, if people are interested in stopping tobacco cigarette smoke, e-cigarettes have been shown in scientific evidence as one alternative to helping people stop tobacco cigarette smoke. And in individuals that are looking to quit, they may be a very useful way to help them quit. So oftentimes people switch, so they switch from tobacco cigarettes to e-cigarettes, so they're still consuming something. And what we don't know yet, that's a big kind of gaping gap in our knowledge, is whether they're safe at all. So I think there's evidence to suggest they may be safer than tobacco cigarette smoke, but we really don't know whether they're just different and still harmful, or whether they are harmful in any way. And that's the piece that myself and other people in Canada and worldwide are trying to understand better.
Sanja, interesting chat. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much. We'll do it again. Thanks
so much for having me.
All right, take care. Sanja Stanojevic, an associate professor at Dalhousie University's Department of Community Health and Epidemiology. Trudeau blows through his deficit guardrail. We'll discuss this when we come back. All right, here's a startling statistic. Interest charges on our federal debt will cost taxpayers $53.7 billion this year. For context, the government will spend $52 billion through the Canada Health transfer this year. That's right, folks. We're spending more to service the debt than we are on health transfers federally. Wow. Joining us to talk about all of this is Franco Terrazzano, Canadian Taxpayers Federation Federal Director. Franco, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, Todd. Great to be on the show with you.
Indeed. So this week we found out through the federal government, not through Chrystia Freeland, although that's a whole other debacle, and we can get into a bit of that, but the federal deficit is upwards, it's over $60 billion, which blew past the $40 billion projection we learned through the fiscal update here. What else can you say about this?
Well, Trudeau drove his deficit right through his own budget guardrail. He has sent the finances off the cliff. I don't know how else to say this. Trudeau has completely lost control of the finances. And it's us as Canadians that are paying the price. Your kids, your grandkids are going to be making payments on Trudeau's debt for the rest of their lives, right? Like, they repeatedly told us that they had a budget guardrail to keep the finances safe, that they would keep the deficit at or below $40 billion, which in and of itself is failure. A $40 billion deficit outside a pandemic, as inflation fattened government coffers for years, as the government has continued to hike taxes, a $40 billion deficit should have been a failure. But the fact that they ran over that deficit by another $20 billion is madness. And, you mentioned off the top that, the government is wasting more money on interest charges than it's sending to the provinces in health transfers. Think of this other little nugget here, folks. In Canada, you are now paying a federal sales tax to cover interest charges on the government credit card. So interest charges, $54 billion this year. The GST revenue, federal sales tax revenue, $52 billion. So you are literally paying a federal sales tax to make interest payments on the government credit card.
All right. I often hear, and I heard it again yesterday with the now new finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc, that this ratio for GDP to debt is better than any other G7 country. They continue to trot this statistic out. Is there any validity to that?
Well, here's the thing, right? Whenever you talk about these types of budget statistics, it depends on how you slice it. It depends on what you're considering as assets or liabilities, and that's how you slice the numbers. The Fraser Institute, another think tank in Canada, has done a great job saying, well, hold on a second. Canada's finances aren't nearly as good as what the government continues to claim, right? And also, think of how the government is moving the goalposts. right? And the government has continued to move the goalposts for close to a decade now. The original budget fiscal guardrail was to have a balanced budget by 2019. Remember when Trudeau said he'd run a couple small deficits and then balance the budget by 2019?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he blew through that guardrail and ran a $20 billion deficit in 2019. And then the government tells us they're going to keep the deficit below $40 billion. Well, what happened this year? $62 billion deficit. Okay? So now they're floating around other guardrails, moving the goalposts because they consistently fail to meet their own standards. I mean, Todd, let me put it another way. Think about how embarrassing this is. They wrote the test, and they failed their own test.
Okay, so drill down more into, you're talking with G7 or rather we hear Dominic LeBlanc and Chrystia Freeland countless times has suggested that per debt per GDP that we're doing better than any other G7 country, and you're suggesting that that's perhaps voodoo economics at play, or drill down into that. Tell us more about the details as to why you think that they've been perhaps cooking the books or whatever scenario you want to call it.
Okay, let me just go into one other claim here about the books, okay? Because this is the biggest claim that they're making in this budget. This is the biggest claim. They are claiming that the deficit is so much bigger than $40 billion because of one-time expenses. That is their biggest claim.
Right.
However, that does not pass the sniff test for a couple reasons, okay? So number one, these significant unexpected expenses, even if you remove those, they're still above the deficit guardrail. They're still above it, even including these one-time expenses.
Right.
Secondly, this year's deficit is going to be $48 billion. That doesn't include the one-time expenses, and they're still blowing over their budget guardrail. And finally, even if you have one-time expenses, Todd, what does a prudent family or business do? Well, if you have to spend more on one area that comes up unexpectedly, let's say you have a leaky roof, then you cut back on some of the nice-to-haves. But the government isn't doing that. They're just spending more money on everything forever. Okay? And this is why it matters. We talked about the interest charges wasting more money than the government sends to the provinces in health transfers. When Trudeau first took over as prime minister, the debt was $616 billion. The debt this year is almost $1.3 trillion. So in less than a decade, the Trudeau government has doubled the national debt. And this is what I mean when I say that Canadians, their kids, and their grandkids are going to be making payments on Trudeau's debt for the rest of their lives.
Okay, so is it a fair comparison to compare debt to GDP? Is that even a fair comparison to those metrics? Do you think that it's applicable to do that?
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of different metrics that you can make, but one of the issues with comparing debt to GDP is that GDP itself is a function of government spending. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? A big component of GDP is the size of government.
Right.
So the bigger that government gets,
that makes
the
sense.
larger the GDP statistic gets.
Sure.
So do you kind of see one of the issues with that?
And the federal government is the biggest employer in Canada, bar none, is it not? I mean, hands down.
I don't know of any other single employer that's bigger, right? Like, I mean, the federal government has about 400,000 government employees, and the federal government has massively grown in size, right? Like, the real reason that our deficit is so big is because we have way too many bureaucrats on the federal payroll. Like, that's just the truth of it. So now, half of every day-to-day spending is consumed by the federal bureaucracy. Okay? Trudeau has added more than 108,000 extra government bureaucrats since 2015. The cost of the federal bureaucracy has gone up by 73% under Trudeau. And I think this is fair to say that Canadians have seen nowhere close to a 73% improvement in federal services.
Yeah, so we're out of time, but just quickly, less than a minute, where do you begin to make a dent into this spending?
Oh, number one is the bureaucracy, right? There is no balanced budget without cutting the number of federal employees and shrinking the cost of their pay and perks. If they consume half of the government's day-to-day spending, there is no way around it. Other big-ticket items is corporate welfare, right? We've all heard of the, $30 billion the government is giving to multinational corporations like Honda, Volkswagen, Stellantis, and Northvolt to build battery factories. But even before all of those promises, back in 2022, the government spent $11.2 billion on corporate subsidies. So the two big-ticket items that the government has to cut back is the bureaucracy and the corporate subsidies.
Franco, appreciate your time as always. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.
Hey, thank you so much, Todd.
All right, take care. Franco Terrazzano, Canadian Taxpayers Federation Federal Director. Our Premier has pushed Ottawa to build northern infrastructure and Arctic foreign policy. That when we come back. All right, joining us for a chat, Scott Taylor of Esprit de Corps Magazine. Scott Taylor, thanks for joining the show as always.
Yes, always a pleasure.
All right, Canada's northern premiers are pitching the federal government to dip into its defense budget as a way to bolster Arctic infrastructure and help meet the NATO spending target in the process. The calls come after Canada released its new Arctic foreign policy earlier this month, which committed to promoting investment in a wide range of sectors, including critical mineral development, transportation, and energy, but specifically making funding commitments in those areas, but rather didn't specifically make funding commitments in those areas. So it strategically makes a lot of sense to turn our eyes northward when it comes to defense spending for a lot of reasons. What are your thoughts?
I think it's rare that very clever ideas come out of these things, but I think in this case they've hit it out of the park. Developing our north would be a priority, and to label it under the defense budget would just make sense. I mean, it's something which obviously a lot of dual-purpose transportation infrastructure that you could build between roads and airports, and they would want to, like naval maritime installations for our patrol ships that are going to be transiting the Northwest Passage. All of that's going to help the communities up there. And if you put it under just normal Arctic development or Northern Affairs or something and don't put it in the defense budget, you're missing a huge golden opportunity. I also did not realize that Canada had huge undeveloped tungsten deposits, which anybody who knows military hardware and military whatever, I mean, that's a very rare, really dense material that's used for anti-armor shells. And the majority of the world's supply comes from China, which means that most NATO countries, probably including Canada, are buying the tungsten that they use for armor-piercing projectiles from China, which would not be secure. But if Canada could invest in that, I mean, that's definitely a defense asset, and that could be something which could put us on the map for all of our NATO allies. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of brilliance in what they're proposing, probably more than they even realize.
All right, what determines defense spending? What are the parameters? What qualifies, I guess, as defense spending?
Well, in most cases, you'd say, well, if we're going to build a highway, it's not a strategic asset, it's a transportation thing, it's got nothing to do with defense. But if you go back to World War II, when they needed a highway to Alaska to join America after the Japanese attack in 1941, that thing was built in cooperation between the Americans and the Canadians in a matter of months, like something that would take probably decades now, but it was done by the Defense Department using defense engineers, and I mean, it can be prioritized as a strategic goal or a strategic asset, if you wish, and to say that we need to defend the North, well, in order to defend it, we need to be able to move around up there, so in order to move around, and I'm not suggesting that we would permanently deploy, large forces of infantry or combat soldiers up there, because that would further train on morale for our forces. But the fact that you need to be able to deploy into it on occasion and to show sovereignty, all of those things could be built up. The airports up there could be built up to take bigger transport aircraft in more communities, which is only going to benefit the communities. It's going to create jobs. It's going to create all sorts of things. But put that under the defense budget, go back to NATO and say there's your 2 or 3%, whatever it comes out to. But in the meantime, we're getting an actual tangible benefit of developing our mining resources, developing our transportation in the North, developing, to a far greater degree. Like Russia has developed its Arctic. I mean, they're getting resources and things from places which we don't even bother to attempt because we haven't built the transportation infrastructure which would make it cost effective. So, when you tweaked me onto this article, I was like, really, obviously thought this was a pretty good idea.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on uptake from the federal government? Do you think the federal government agrees, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm residing in Ottawa right now, and this place is like like a bomb went off. This is crazy. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, who's going to be in charge, and who's in charge of the purse strings. I think we all can realize that the Trudeau era seems to be over at the moment, and moving forward, we're going to have a new president south of the border, who's talking about 25% tariffs and demanding that we spend more on defense and more on border security. So I think we're going to have to do as we're told in some cases, but in other cases we could jump ahead of this thing. Again, unlike many of NATO allies, we don't include our Coast Guard costs as part of our national defense budget for some strange reason. We could also quickly recategorize the RCMP into a quasi-gendarmerie national police force and put that under the defense budget as well. We could get to that 2% without even spending an extra dollar on personnel or equipment by simply changing the way we account for what we call defense, including the care and treatment for all of our injured and wounded veterans. That's all cost you could associate with what the defense of Canada or the security of Canada. So, but by creative accounting, we could be much better off than we appear. And this suggestion that we develop the Arctic, I mean, if they don't listen to that, then they're worse off than I think.
NORAD, what assets do we already have in the north?
Very little, and this is where we're having trouble even maintaining our NORAD commitments right now with the F-18s that we've got left, and a lot of it's due to a pilot shortage as opposed to the fact that the equipment is not sufficient. We've had to cancel a number of planned for NATO joint exercises and things due to a shortage of pilots and operational aircraft. Now they're addressing that with the purchase of 88 F-35 aircraft, but they also purchased a number of Predator drones. I don't know if you've been following the story. I forget the cost on that project, but they made the purchase, and part of course, it was to patrol the Arctic, and then they realized quickly that instead of there's been no tests done on cold weather flights, and they're going to have to completely redesign part of the Predator drones in order for us to operate them. So our delivery date, instead of being 2025, is now going to be at least 2028. So while we're putting out money and putting out things to try to bolster our presence in the Arctic, we haven't been that successful so far.
All right, and we've got a naval facility that are under that we have plans for, and I'm reading the story say they'll serve as a refueling station for Canadian government vessels in the Arctic, though it is trimmed down version of what was originally conceived. And I'm reading the story. In 2022, Canada's Auditor General released a feasibility concern with the facility, saying it provided little value, and the project, which the federal government is already into for more than $100 million, is already behind schedule. So what are your thoughts on this?
This is the problem. I mean, these great ideas, when it gets bogged down in bureaucracy and when the fact that the procurement system is completely broken, that's the other problem. I mean, but the idea of developing infrastructure in the north and calling it defense spending is a great idea, but it still needs oversight. It still needs to be monitored. And again, it should be expanded from the one facility that they're talking about to a number of other communities, which would only, again, connect them, have better connectivity for the people living up there. So, and then further encouraging others to move up and to develop further. So it's a good first idea, not even a first start, but I think that it definitely merits some support.
Okay, and you mentioned drones. Do you feel as though drones would be a better option? Where are we with the F-35, by the way, with that procurement? What's the latest on the F-35 procurement?
Well, if you listen to the news, Elon Musk is saying he wants to cancel that project, and he's now going to be Trump's director. What is it? The Director of Government Efficiency or something?
Yeah.
Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. So if he has any powers, I mean, if he cancels the project in the States, then we're going to be back to the drawing board as to what aircraft to pick to replace our F-18. So again, we're not our own. We're not independent enough to say, no, we'll keep on buying them, because if they kill the project, it's going to be dead.
Wow, then what? Anything off the shelf could we purchase, or what would be the options?
we have to go back hat in hand to people like Saab who were trying to sell us the Gripen aircraft, which many people felt would be a better choice anyway, cheaper to maintain and better suited for the job. And again, everybody's moving forward. We're seeing this with the war in Ukraine, that the uninhabited, as they say, or unmanned, is the way to go. And that's something which that's only going to improve, head over heels as we go forward. That these machines that was unthinkable before, you had to have somebody remotely piloting. They're now piloting themselves, these things. So in a future dogfight, you're going to have a machine that's going to select a target and open fire, whereas you're going to have a human in a cockpit who's going to have to make a decision on opening fire, and by that time it's going to be too late. So I think that the way forward, future will be completely uninhabited machines fighting machines, but at the moment there's still a place for manned aircraft.
So why would we not set our sights on that then, if that's the future? And it seems to make sense, as opposed to procuring some aircraft like the F-35 or whatever it might be. Why not just make a decision and go with drones?
So the queen of the battlefield in Ukraine over the last 2.5, almost 3 years, has been the first person view drones, and they can make these for about $500 each. They can be used as a suicide role, where they go in and take out the tank and take out themselves with explosives on board. But they're using fleet after fleet of these things over there. Canada has admitted that we don't even have a project office that's even looking into buying these things. Now, explain that one to me. If we all know that in a proven case of peer or near peer combat is the use of the FPV drone, and we're not even setting up an office to look into buying them, that tells you where people's heads are at.
Okay, back to the GDP spending. What's the timeline? I think it was 2032 or something like that this government committed to hitting that 2%. Was that the number? Was that the date?
So yes, the Trudeau Liberals have said that they're going to plan to boost spending, and by that time, I mean, who has any idea what our GDP is going to be in 2032? And it's again a percentage of a varying number. And the economic picture right now with the latest budget that was tabled not by Freeland but by what's his name?
Bill Blair?
No, it was the new finance minister, LeBlanc.
Oh yeah, Dominic LeBlanc.
Quickly sworn in, and he put the papers out. But I mean, we're an extra 40 billion over, or 20 billion over, whatever it is. So I mean, the things aren't looking good. I mean, as far as we're going, and of course, if we're going to face 25% tariffs in a couple of months, that's not going to be good for our economy either. So we may get to that 2% quicker because our GDP shrinks, but that's not ever a good thing. I mean, that's. And again, that just shows you how ridiculous this idea of 2% of a floating number on your defense, as opposed to what you really need to defend your country or to be part of an alliance such as NATO. And again, the idea of developing tungsten resources up in the north and then being able to sell that product to our NATO allies and get them off the dependency on China is amazing. I mean, that's something which is brilliant.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit laughable that we have to think about who's the finance minister when it seems to be a rotating platform at this point, right?
Well, and again, I mean, it's just the next few weeks. I think we're going to see changes for sure. There's going to have to be. That's the mood here in Ottawa right now. This was the final blow, so we'll see what happens.
Okay. Scott, appreciate your time. Merry Christmas, my friend. Thank you.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Bye.
All right, take care. Scott Taylor, Esprit de Corps Magazine. Some epilepsy patients worry their seizures will return amid medication shortage. We'll discuss this when we come back. The Canadian Epilepsy Alliance says an ongoing shortage of an epilepsy medication is leaving some patients worried they'll start to have seizures again if they switch to an alternative. The shortage of Tevaclobazam, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but I'll certainly get the pronunciation from our guest, which began last May, is expected to last until April next year, according to Health Canada's Drug Shortages website. Joining us to talk about all of this is Cassidy Morgan, founder of Purple Day. Cassidy's been on the show before, of course. Cassidy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
Okay, indeed. So clobazam, is that how you say that?
Clobazam.
Okay, there you go. I knew it wasn't even close, but I'll give myself a little props. All right,
props. You did good. There things to be hired.
There you go, Cassidy. For those who don't know you and a bit about your background, let everybody know about yourself and Purple Day.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Cassidy Morgan. I'm the founder of Purple Day, which is an epilepsy awareness day celebrated globally every year on March 26th. But I do events and interviews like this to help keep the awareness in the forefront of as many people as we can, because we do have lived with epilepsy every day.
Okay, so this shortage of this drug, first of all, do you take this drug or?
I do not take this drug. I am on a different one, but I do know I have some friends and some people that I know that are on this one.
Okay, and how concerning is it, and how problematic is it to get something, to have a drug that's working, and to have a potential shortage, and with neurology and all that goes with this very complex disease? I would think that this would be very stressful, which again adds to the whole challenge of managing the disease as well, right?
It does. Stress can be is a major trigger for a lot of us that live with seizures and epilepsy to have more. And the stress of the worry of your medication running out could be enough to cause a seizure on its own. But then to not have a medication that's hopefully controlling your seizures, without it, you know that you're going to be back to square one. You're going to be back to before you were diagnosed and having seizures uncontrollably. And that raises our risk for SUDEP, which is sudden unexpected death in epilepsy patients. And it's a thought we all live with, but we can't keep it in the back burner because you can't live there.
Mm-hmm.
But with the medication shortage, it brings that to the forefront a little more, because you don't know where your next medication is going. Is it going to run out? Are they going to have it when I call for my next refill?
Whoa.
How many seizures will it give me?
Wow.
So people have to reach out to like their pharmacies and their family doctors and the associations, and keep getting updates on how the shortage is going and if their medications are still going to be there for them.
How common is this, Cassidy? Does this happen from time to time?
It does, yeah. This I think the last time was this one started around April.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened again with another one not long ago, and I can't remember when, but it does happen now and then, and it's something, when I go to my doctor's appointments and we talk about other medications, it is always something, like when you change medications, I start a medication for a different health issue,
mm-hmm.
I know it can affect me to have more seizures because of whatever the makeup is in that medication and how it plays on my other health and with my epilepsy,
mm-hmm.
and how it changes your, body chemistry,
sure,
biology stuff, but it changes all that. And that in itself, every time I had a medication change, I would undoubtedly have more seizures until it kicked in. And so that's another worry when you have these shortages and people have to try to find different alternatives, is you go into that process knowing that you're going to have more seizures. And that's why a lot of people, even without the shortage, don't necessarily like changing medications because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the shortage definitely brings an extra height of worry for us, and it's definitely worrisome. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not on the medication, but I still feel the worry for all those that are.
Yeah, and of course, you're concerned that possibly this could happen to your medication that you are on down the road, right?
100%. The medication I'm on it's another well-known one, and it's very plausible that it could become a shortage. I think it may have even in the past before I was on it. So yeah, it is something I think about.
I'll bet. So what are you hearing from people? What advice do you give to people, I guess, who are in the circumstance or the situation? I mean, outside of calling pharmacies and talking to your doctor, unfortunately, there's not really a lot you can do. What advice do you give to people?
Unfortunately, that's really true. So, if you are part of the affected group that is on this drug and you're not sure what else to do. It's hard not to think about it or stress about it because it's something that can help save your life. But at the same time, unfortunately, doing stuff like this interview and talking about it is as much as we can do to help hopefully put an increase in or stop the shortage. But, just try to focus on your family, your friends, your support system. Try to find things that help take away your stress. Keep your stress as low as possible. Do everything you can to avoid triggering a seizure until hopefully in not long period this is resolved.
Indeed.
You can reach out to your local agency. They have a lot of resources that could help too, even if that's just talking to someone.
Right.
Here in Halifax, and they're in the Maritimes, we have the Epilepsy Association of the Maritimes. They have a lot of resources. One of their support workers actually used to work in the neurology field, so they have a lot of good information on this.
Okay, Cassidy, listen, I really appreciate your time as always. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again.
Thank you so much for doing topics like this, Todd. It's so great to work with you and work on spreading awareness with you guys.
Okay, great stuff. Do it again. Thank you. Cassidy Morgan, founder of Purple Day. House calls with Dr. John Gillis when we come back.
Backs.
Dr. John, you're my medicine man. Dr. John, you're my medicine man. I don't use no potion.
All right, it's time for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. The way to reach us, 902-405-6000. If you've got a health-related question or concern, give us a call, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, House Calls, Dr. John Gillis. If you've got a question about your health, 902-405-6000. Dr. John Gillis, welcome to the show as always.
Hey, sir. How you doing?
I'm okay. Yourself?
I'm doing well. Just got back from Ottawa. I was up seeing some folks in Ottawa overnight.
Any liberal luminaries by any chance?
I saw a few of them, yeah.
Well, it's good.
Interesting times.
Indeed. Well, we won't delve into politics because that's not what the show's about. But I will we'll get your take on a little bit of sports. You're, of course, a diehard Leafs fan like myself. And another goaltender, another injury. Anthony Stollart's undergoing a knee surgery. It's 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, this is not good news. What are your thoughts, I guess, on Stolarts, who's a pretty good goaltender?
Yeah, no, it's frustrating. I mean, they've been playing well in spurts, but also frustrating in spurts. But he was doing some good stuff, and I think we were all starting to play on the parade again. But who knows?
Yeah, what do you think about the Leafs in general? I mean, I'm talking to a lot of people who are Leafs fans, and they all kind of say the same thing, that they feel that the defense is better this year. Stolarz is injured, but it's only 4 to 6 weeks. That him and Wall are a pretty good combination. Pretty good offense. Tavares had a hat trick the other night. You think that this year's a little different, or what are your thoughts?
I think so in general. I mean, I saw them play. Broke my curse of always losing when I was there. But I saw them play Utah they got a lot of guys out, and people in the lineup I never heard of, but they played scrappy and tough. It hasn't been their way, and it was nice to watch. Now, since Matthews has come back, I think they're back relying on superstar to take them home again, and hope they don't get caught in that trap.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. Again, 902-405-6000. While we await some calls, a couple of things that caught my eye. Earlier in the show, I had a chat with an associate professor in Dalhousie University's Department of Community Health and Epidemiology. And the story, I'll read a bit of it off the CTV website, says, while the use of cigarettes has declined in the 21st century, there's been a rapid increase in the use of electronic cigarettes, or e-cigarettes as they're known, and other vaping devices with little known about the effects on users. Now researchers at Dal are using an old testing method to help them learn more about how these devices affect lung function in young adults. It's called the Lung Clearance Index, a breathing test where participants simply inhale and exhale oxygen to determine lung capacity. Any thoughts in general, Dr. Gillis, on e-cigarettes? I mean, the sample size is pretty small at this point. What's your takeaway at this point?
No, I think it's quite important that it get tested because we don't know. I think the general view in the medical community is, well, it's better than smoking, so so lesser evil. But I don't think we really have the data to support that. And I think getting that data is important. And in general, we should encourage people, not to vape as well. I mean, nicotine is not entirely benign. It raises blood pressure. It can raise the risk of cardiovascular disease, just by itself. I mean, it's better than putting smoke in your lungs. But, it's not something that is completely harmless. I think people forget about that.
Yeah, do you think there's, look, we don't know e-cigarettes. I think they've been around for about a decade or so. I'm not sure exactly how long they've been around, but is that possibly cause for concern that because we know with cigarettes, I think generally people can smoke for 10, 15, 20, 25 years before it's showing the effects of potential cancer. Do you feel as though that we may be on the cusp of something like that with e-cigarettes? Not to fearmonger, but what are your thoughts?
Well, we certainly could be. And again, we just don't have the information. I mean, there are various medical conditions, exposures to toxins that don't manifest themselves for a period of time. And, sometimes you don't know what that period of time is, right? And we may be past it. There may be no issue, but we may still be inside of it and, and facing a coming problem. So.
But as far as the smoking cessation product, you think that there's some merit there?
No, I think so. Yeah, I mean, if it can get people off cigarettes, as it does for many people, that's a good thing. But I think we've gotten into the mindset that's where we stop. That it's a nicotine and smoking cessation journey, not just a journey to stop smoking. And I've seen a few people lately that they don't smoke anymore, but their nicotine use is really high to the point where they're obviously they're physically dependent on it, but they're to the point where they don't have it. They're actually jittery and because it's using so much of it. The pouches as well, right? That are out there now.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Gary, hello.
Yes, I just want to find out about cirrhosis of the liver. I have it. And I just went to a specialist and told me it's getting very serious, the cirrhosis in my liver.
Okay, well, cirrhosis of the liver is a breakdown of liver tissue that can be caused by a variety of things. Sometimes, the most common cause, frankly, is alcohol, but there are other causes, other diseases, other medical conditions that can cause it. What were you told?
I have sarcoidosis of this disease in the lungs. And what it is sarcoidosis.
Right. So did they tell you that's what's causing the liver problem?
Yeah, gone down to my liver.
Okay. So it causes the liver to become fibrous in nature, not to work as well. Sarcoid, in some cases can be treated. So, that's, perhaps a little different than having a problem that's alcohol related. But did they tell you what the plan was or what they're going to do?
They're going to put me on it. I think they're going to do another test on it. Check it, another CT scan, or they're going to put me on a pill.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're in good hands. That's better than some of the other possibilities. They have a plan and can hopefully slow down some of the damage if it's all caused by the sarcoid. So that's a better story than some, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Gary, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Speaking of alcohol, I saw this story on the CTV website. Drinking a small amount of wine each day may protect the heart, according to a new study of Spanish people following the plant-based Mediterranean diet, which typically includes drinking a small glass of wine with dinner. In a group of people over 60 at risk of heart disease, drinking 1/2 to 1 glass of wine a day reduced the risk of having cardiovascular event, such as a heart attack or stroke, by 50%. When compared to people who drink no wine. However, this protective effect disappeared in people who drank more than 1 glass per day, according to a senior study researcher. So we often hear that. And is it just the grapes themselves that are beneficial, or is it the fermented grape, or what's going on with this, Dr. Gillis? What are your thoughts on this?
There's some antioxidant effect. There may be a bit of a blood thinning effect, but I think what everybody's come to is, do people just have a glass? That they don't tend to do that. So I mean, if that were the case, is it providing some, I hate to use the word benefit, but is there a positive, impact on certain health factors? There could be. It's just that the overall impact, taking all factors is worse.
Okay, alcohol in general, there have been the goalposts, I think, have moved recently when it comes to safe consumption. We hear, what can you tell us? What's the latest from the healthcare community on alcohol and consumption and advice? And because it seems to me the goalposts have been moving here. What can you tell us?
I think you hear different things. You hear anything more than 2 is bad. You hear in some circles any amount is bad. I think most people approach it as encourage moderation and encourage understanding the health risks. I think we've done a good job as a society of doing that, and certainly noticing in the younger generation, as a snapshot, looking at the rugby community, there's a tradition of having some beers after practice or game, but the 20-year-olds, they have one. It's just not, the culture has changed a bit. Now they may be doing other things when they're, in other places, but the drinking culture has improved, I would say, generally in a positive way.
All right, and also I suppose it would coincide with how else you live your lifestyle, whatever other lifestyle you have. So if you drink a 6-pack on the weekend, but you're running and you're exercising and you're taking care of yourself otherwise, that perhaps would offset some of the drinking. I think as a standalone, it doesn't tell the whole story. You have to look at it in somebody's entire lifestyle. What are your thoughts?
No, you're right. I mean, if you're very fit and active, you can balance that. I mean, alcohol has a lot of calories as well. People forget about that. You're not doing yourself any favors when you're, the term beer gut didn't materialize out of thin air. It's real. The COVID IPA belly.
Yeah.
We saw a fair bit of that when people didn't have too much to do and time on their hands. But yeah, that's it. It's understanding moderation and eating well and exercising as well, and all things balanced.
Okay, Joy, hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. I'm just calling. I have an appointment coming up with my nurse practitioner, but on the end of December. But I'm experiencing pain in my sternum, like right, and it seems like it's I don't know, almost like I want to burp, but then it doesn't really help anything. Plus, it feels like, that nervous feeling if you're going up to speak in front of a bunch of people and you get that little, that's what it feels like. And sometimes it's associated with a pain in my right shoulder blade. Just wondering what kind of tests that maybe I would ask for to get to the bottom of it.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but if you're having pain in your chest, how old are you?
I'm 62.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having pain in your chest and you're over 50, you really need to make sure it's not something cardiac or something serious. It's it's likely not, but that's not the type of thing you play around with. If you're having episodes of this frequently, you should get yourself checked. It may just be acid reflux. It may be gas. It could be your gallbladder. It could just be gas. But it's hard to determine that without at least getting an ECG and some blood work, and then determining if there's any further testing that needs to be done. So
I have a good blood pressure and all that stuff. My blood work is not too bad. But I'm just thinking, so I've been kind of doing some research, but I'm looking at hiatal hernia, maybe, in that area.
Yeah, it's possible. Like I said, there's a lot of things it could be, but the bottom line is if you're having chest pain, you should get yourself checked. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't. So.
All right. Okay.
Okay, good luck, Joy. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. 902-405-6000. House Calls continues when we come back. All right, it's House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. Give us a buzz, 902-405-6000 if you've got a health-related question or concern. Del, hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Well, you?
Not too bad. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on everything. I'll try to make it fast. In April, I woke up in the middle of the night with a blinding headache. It was a headache, so I took some Advil, took some Tylenol. Didn't go away. 7 days later, I went into the ER. They did the test, put me into a room within 10 minutes. My blood pressure at that time was 205/110. They worked on that to get that down, worked on the headache. I hadn't had any luck. They did a couple of CAT scans. Everything came clear. Did a spinal tap. No infection there. But I've had that headache continuously since April. I'm just wondering if you have any idea what the heck's going on here.
I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, if someone else hasn't figured it out in six months or so, that I'm not sure I can add much to that. Have you seen a neurologist?
I saw one at the infirmary as part of the ER thing. They really didn't know. They came up and they said, well, we have a name for it. It's sudden onset headache, but no idea what's causing or really how to treat it. I've gone through 4 different medications, and I'm still having the headache.
And what's the follow-up pattern been? Have you not been followed by neurology? Who's giving you the meds?
Neurology is giving me the meds. I'm seeing my own family doctor for the blood pressure, which I never had before I got this headache. My blood pressure now down is in the high 120s over 110 or whatever. So my blood pressure come down, but again, I still have the headache.
Yeah, that's certainly frustrating. I mean, headaches can be very hard to diagnose and very hard to treat. It's a very tough area. I see a bit of it in the ER and I see a bit of it in the chronic pain world. But if you've had the scans and the spinal tap to rule out structural stuff, then you're having some strange variant of migraine or a tension headache. But again, those things usually aren't constant. They usually come and go. So I guess the best advice I give to you is to stay with the treatment you're on, and go back to the neurologist and say, look, this isn't working. What's up next? Because there are a lot of options out there. Just try to find the right one or the right mix, maybe what you need. So I hope it gets better. I've never had chronic headaches, but I used to get cluster headaches, which literally feel like someone's taken a drill into your eye, and so I know what that's like. Fortunately, they didn't last very long, but when they were there, they were debilitating.
Okay, thanks. So just ask, I guess.
Okay, Del.
Thanks.
Good luck, pal.
Sure enough.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Brittany, hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
I just had a question regarding my husband. He's been losing some weight since about late summer, a little over 40 pounds unintentionally. He had blood work. The doctor said it came back fine, and we're waiting on a CT scan. But I guess, obviously, we're kind of worried, as it isn't intentional, and you kind of think the worst when you hear unintentional weight loss. So I guess I'm just wondering if you have any opinion or any other tests or things that we could...
Yeah, no, fair enough. Any bleeding, any change in bowel habits, anything weird?
No other symptoms other than like slight constipation, but nothing really that's major changes. He feels normal.
Yeah, and no fevers, night sweats, anything like that?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, no real red flags. He's had some blood work. A CT scan is probably the next best test. I mean, I guess, if it's ongoing and persistent, talk to your doctor about trying to move it up in terms of its urgency. It just may have been triaged at a low level of urgency, and if it's getting worse or not, going away, they may be able to speed it up for you. And I guess, I could get in trouble every time I tell people to go to the ER, but if you're concerned, that may be your last resort if it's not getting settled, or you're finding you're having to wait many more months. So it's probably the best advice I can give you. Okay?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot. All right, take care. 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us for house calls. We'll talk to John Gillis. If you've got a health-related question or concern, give us a call at 902-405-6000. Dr. Gillis will do his best to give you a hand at 902-405-6000. House calls continues when we come back. All right, it's House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. Give us a call if you've got a health-related question or concern, 902-405-6000. That is the way to take part. Again, if you've got a health-related question or concern, Dr. Gillis will do his best to have it answered. 902-405-6000. Monique's giving us a call. Hello, Monique.
Hello, good morning, everybody. How are you, Dr. Gillis? I'm just going to ask you a question there. I had 4 flares there in the last 2 years, and I thought it was constipation. And the last flare that I had to be rushed to the hospital because it was like labor pains. So they did a CT scan, and they diagnosed me with diverticulitis. And they said I should go have a colonoscopy done, and she gave me 2 of the strongest antibiotics for 2 weeks. So I checked for the colonoscopy, and it's going to take a year. But do I have anything to be concerned about, or that's my question?
Concerned about in terms of what? Something being missed? Is that what you mean?
It has to do with the bowel and the intestine, right?
Yeah, I mean, diverticulitis is an infection of little pockets in the bowel. I mean, it can be painful and quite bothersome, but it's not typically a dangerous or life-threatening condition. The purpose of the colonoscopy is sometimes, just to go in and make sure there's not, resistant area of infection or to look for other things. But again, if you get a CT scan, it doesn't show the little things like polyps and such. So, there may have been something I wanted to take a look at, but certainly a CT scan, would show big stuff like, if you had a big tumor growing in there. So it's probably precautionary, and that they were pretty confident that there was nothing going on in there, but they wanted to take the extra step, but it's not urgent. So that does make sense.
Okay, and just last question. I went for an ultrasound, and they said I had a fatty liver when I had a flare at one time. So would that have something to do with it, do you think?
Something to do with what?
In the fatty liver, does that have something to do with the diverticulitis, or? Nothing at all. No.
Completely unrelated.
Oh. Nope. Okay, I just wanted to know your opinion. So thank you very much.
Problem.
Okay, thanks for calling. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Quick email question, then back to the phones. It's from Josh. Says, the question is in reference to my daughter. Last month she was diagnosed with an ear infection. She gets these chronically, maybe once or twice per year. She was prescribed amoxicillin as usual. 2 weeks after the antibiotics, still had a cough. Some days a fever and or nausea. We brought her in. She was prescribed puffers, as the doctors believe she may have asthma. Fast forward 2 weeks to today. She was diagnosed with another ear infection, given amoxicillin again, which I was skeptical of, as she had just taken it prior and did not want to develop resistance. I'm curious what you think, what may be causing her to develop these ear infections so frequently. Perhaps she may have some sort of consistent fluid in her ear, allowing bacteria to breed. Any clarification would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, ear infections in kids are tough. I mean, there's a lot of kids that end up just constantly on antibiotics, just, prescription to prescription to prescription, when, frankly, most of the time, the symptoms can be treated with anti-inflammatories or Tylenol, treat the pain, and the backup or any sort of infection will resolve. So I think roll it quick with antibiotics sometimes. There are some kids that just don't drain their ears and that do have chronic infections and do need tubes. In terms of what's causing it, fluid in the ear is a part of it. It's often just the anatomy of the ear and, how that particular kid is draining or not draining fluid, and, trying to determine, what do they need? Do they need, aggressive action with tubes? Do they need antibiotics periodically, or do they just need symptom control? I mean, I think I was lucky. My two kids, between the two of them, were on antibiotics for ear pain once. The several other times they had it, we treated them with, a good dose of ibuprofen, and the pain resolved sort of on its own, which, we try to do if we're able. But everybody's different, for sure. So, but keep those things in mind, I guess I would say.
Okay. Mike, hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. I had a question for the doctor. I was having some pain on and off now for the last 2 weeks or so more on my left side toward the kidney area, but some on the right as well. And last night the pain went from mild, I guess around a 3, to at times 9 or 10, excruciating pain, like a spasm type pain. And it's just like you buckle you over that you couldn't walk or anything and hardly breathe. Just wondering, is that a sign of a kidney stone, or is that something you should check out, or a one-off? I'm not really sure what to do at this point. I don't have a GP.
Yeah, no, it's tough to say. It could be a kidney stone. Kidney stones are normally more to the side and into the what we call the flank, and then radiating down into the groin. But you can feel pain sort of anywhere in the abdomen, but they're one side or the other typically. If it's both sides, it would be unlikely to be a kidney stone. Theoretically, could have one on each side, but that would be uncommon. And then beyond that, other things that are in there, from things as simple as gas to what we just talked about, diverticulitis, to blockages, to all sorts of things. So bottom line is, if it's not settling down or it's getting worse, you should probably get it checked, and just to make sure it's not something more serious, and or just for your own comfort, because it's so painful.
Okay, just with your doctor more so than an emergency room visitor. So,
well, if you have one, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just people have belly pain. We like to put, one of the problems with telemedicine or phone medicine is I can't put a hand on your belly or check your back and that sort of thing to see if I think it's something more serious in the belly, and that's why we always like people to get examined for this sort of thing.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Doctor. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Good luck. 902-405-6000. John, hello.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
We're well.
Good. I was listening to the lady who was diagnosed with diverticulitis. I can't remember the exact number of years ago. I was diagnosed with acute diverticulitis, doctor, and I went through all the tests. And the way it was explained to me by the surgeon, and the decision is always up to you whether you want to have surgery or not. If you can imagine the balloon, the more you blow a balloon up, the thinner the skin gets. And with diverticulitis, the little pockets, as they get bigger, or they can also get infected, that wall gets thinner. So if you're straining a lot when you go to the washroom, that puts added pressure onto that. If it erupts, it can be extremely serious, extremely, as you know. So if I was that lady, I would Keep in touch with her doctor. If she's able to travel anywhere else in the province to have this test done, I would do it. It's extremely painful. It would bring me to my knees and tears in my eyes at work or while I was driving, because when it hits, it hits. The other big factor is stress. And if you drink too much coffee, that's not a good thing. And those are the two things that Todd was doing at that time. A lot of stress and a lot of coffee. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thanks for the input.
Okay, thanks. 902-405-6000. Here's an email question. It says, I have kidney disease, and last year I had an EGFR readings of 103 that fell to 52 in July after a diet change. Statins for cholesterol and less alcohol, it's now at 63. The question is, can kidneys completely heal after proper care?
Yeah, I mean, they can. It really depends what the nature of the disease is. I mean, that number is a number of the function of the kidney, which can be affected by a whole host of factors. If you're dehydrated, your kidney function, goes down. The productivity, goes down, and the number we measure is something called creatinine goes up. You get hydrated either by drinking fluids or IV fluids, and things normalize. If you have a blockage, that can affect your kidneys, a kidney stone or something else. And there are different, from medications to direct kidney disease, diabetes, different things. So usually eliminating the cause, will allow kidney function to normalize or to improve at least. But it does depend on what that cause is. Sometimes the damage is not repairable. So it sounds like some repair has occurred here. That's a good sign, and hopefully it'll continue.
Okay. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for house calls with Dr. John Gillis. We've got the doctor to the top of the hour. Get some room for you as well. 902-405-6000. House calls continues when we come back. House calls with Dr. John Gillis. We've got some time for you to the top of the hour. 902-405-6000. Give us a call again, 902-405-6000 if you've got a question for Dr. Gillis. Shane's giving us a call. Hello, Shane.
Hey, Todd. How's it going, old buddy?
Going well.
Dr. John, just a quick question. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. I'm stage 4 cancer patient. I'm on borrowed time. Whatever, that's fine. But I have a family member who is suffering kidney failure and could use a kidney. Now, I've been told I can't donate. Literally any organs, anything. So if I could just get your thoughts or opinion on that, that'd be great. And to you gentlemen, have a wonderful day.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I think typically the concern there is that if you have cancer, it could have spread even if they didn't detect it. And if you're passing it on, you could put that person at risk. Is there a scenario where somebody could, say, look, I'll waive that risk. I'll take it anyway. Maybe that would make sense. Probably would need to know a little bit more about the type of cancer that the gentleman has. Is it something that is likely to spread? Is it something that could get into other organs? There probably are a number of factors, but that is unfortunate. That if the kidney's good and there's no sign of spread, you think there would be a way, but obviously there's a reason for it, and that's probably what it's based on.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Here's an email question. It says, I had surgery for leiomyosarcoma on my arm 3 years ago. I am still getting sharp pain, itchiness in the area. Is this normal?
Well, no. I wouldn't say it is. A couple issues there. You take a big piece out of, someone's arm, the skin, the bone, depending on what it was. We don't have that info. But, there's probably some residual damage there. Sometimes things just don't heal properly. There's residual inflammation and infection. So probably would be worthwhile, getting it looked at and to determine, what the issue is. Does it need a different type of treatment? Does it need a cream for inflammation? Does it need an antibiotic? Does it, theoretically, it would seem unlikely at this stage, but does it need to be revised or fixed by a plastic surgeon, that sort of thing? Probably not at this point, but those are a few thoughts.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Here's an email question. It says, my son got his grade 7 inoculation at school yesterday. We chose to opt out of the HPV vaccine. We were a little shocked to get a call from the school saying they were sorry, but they accidentally gave it to him. We were not impressed, but nothing we could really do about it. Have you heard of anything like this before? and it could have been a very serious situation if it was a vaccine he was allergic to. So any thoughts on this, Dr. Gillis?
No, I mean, I haven't heard of that happening. It, could happen, as an honest, mistake. I can't imagine someone did it intentionally. They were probably just, giving what they would do on a standard basis. When people get vaccines, they're cross-checked for allergies. So you would think that wouldn't happen, although I guess anything's possible. And then I guess the other issue is, why the opt-out. Maybe it wasn't communicated to the people given the vaccine, which is unfortunate. And, the process hopefully would be tightened up on to go forward. But I guess to answer the first question, no, I haven't, I don't think that happens too often.
902-405-6000. We've got some time for you to the top of the hour if you'd like to sneak in a question for Dr. Gillis. Again, 902-405-6000. Here's something I wanted to get your take on. I'll read a bit of it off the CTV website and then get your opinion on it. It says the steps you take each day could lead you to a reduction in depression symptoms, according to a new study. A study published in the journal JAMA Network Open found that a higher daily step count is associated with fewer depressive symptoms. So I don't think this is really breaking any news, Dr. Gillis. I think physical activity, is quite well associated with mental health. What are your thoughts?
No, that's not rocket surgery. I mean, if you're more active, you feel better. You have, more endorphins, dopamine. You lose weight, better body image. Just all of those things that go together. Being out walking means you're active and engaging with people, with activities, which again help mental health, as opposed to, sitting at home and watching TV or being inactive, eating. All the things that, we can tend to do when we're, not feeling our best. So it makes sense. So it's the engagement and the activity that go together that are quite helpful.
Yeah, the catch-22, of course, is that when people are depressed, they don't feel like doing anything, right? That's the issue, right?
That's exactly it. And it's, we see that with chronic pain as well, or, people that are in pain, they don't want to go anywhere. They don't move, they gain weight, and they lose muscle mass, which makes it even worse and makes it even harder to do things. Mm-hmm. So it can be quite a vicious cycle, both mental health and pain.
Okay, and this story also wanted to get your take on. Canada's facing a growing crisis in its healthcare system as the number of new family doctors working in the country has slowed, according to a recent report published by the Canadian Institute for Health Information. Said the rate at which the number of family doctors is growing has slowed from nearly 3% in years 2015 to 2017 to 1% in 2021 to 2023. Dr. Gillis, what are some of the fundamental reasons that you hear from people as to why they choose not to be a family doctor?
It's generally speaking, there are exceptions, but one of the lowest paying parts of the profession. It's a lot of responsibility and stress. There's a lot to manage in terms of, running a business and a practice that people aren't necessarily trained to do. And they, people choose lifestyle or something else, for that mix of reasons. And, this is quite concerning. You've heard me, I've said a few times recently, maybe before you were back, it's a little more complicated than this, but, think of a scenario where we had docs seeing, 50 patients a day. They were working to the bone too much. And lo and behold, as we moved along, people wisely realized, well, we can't keep doing that. That's not good for the practitioner's health. It's maybe not good for their ability to relate to their patients. So we're going to, bring in more women, more people of color, a greater diversity, which is a very positive move. That led to people choosing to work fewer hours or not to work quite as intensely. And again, not a bad idea, a good idea in many ways, but nobody bothered to keep up with, well, if, Dr. Jones is seeing 50 a day, but Dr. Jones's replacement is only seeing 35, we need another third of a doctor to keep up for that,
right? With
that productivity. Add to that the pure genius of putting everybody on a salary without talking about what you have to do to get the salary. So productivity accountability. So you go from Dr. Jones at 50 to Dr. Smith at 35 a day to, Dr. whoever at 25 patients a day. You now need 2 doctors to do the work that you were getting from 1 previously. And it's a bit of an oversimplification, but that's largely what's happened. Add to that, that news that if you can keep churning them out and keep, training more doctors to have the numbers to, fill that need, even if you need 2 to replace 1, then that's okay. And that's, in jurisdictions like France and Germany, where they have an oversupply or a significant supply, they manage. They don't have, shortages and lists like we do. But it's created a bit of a perfect storm, and to now hear that we're not turning them out is even more concerning with the the demographic and productivity changes that we've seen over time, and in some cases contributed to with policy.
Dr. Gillis, always appreciate it. Listen, Merry Christmas. Won't be talking to you until the New Year, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll look forward to many more times chatting in the New Year, my friend.
Sounds good. Talk soon.
All right. Take care. That's Dr. John Gillis, and that's House Calls. And again, we appreciate Dr. Gillis's participation and look forward to doing it again in the new year, of course. All right, we got some time for you. What is on your mind? The way to reach us, 902-405-6000. I'm sure that some of you might want to talk about the fact that, my goodness gracious, what's going on in Ottawa and Justin Trudeau walking around like it's business as usual. Just unbelievable that he would deliver I call it a speech. I don't know what you want to call it last night to party faithful at their Christmas gathering. A kind of a tradition at the end of Parliament, but just this raucous speech with all types of enthusiasm and boisterous, and it's just like, man, you don't know how to read any room, do you? He's just out of touch, completely delusional at this point, in my humble opinion, for whatever that's worth. What's your take on what's going on in Ottawa and the lack of a sense of urgency from this government when it comes to this tariff war that we are already in, and it is pressing? January 20th is going to come quick, folks, and Parliament isn't going to convene until January 27th, I believe it is. And it doesn't appear as though that any action is going to be taken outside of what the provinces, outside of what the premiers are going to do to deal with this. And you would think that this would be priority number 1. But my gosh, saving his political skin and running for cover and not doing interviews. Not doing any year-end interviews, canceling them. You want to talk about being a coward and running for the cover? Absolutely pathetic. What are your thoughts on this or anything else you've got in your mind? 902-405-6000. 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back. All right. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to congratulate the one and only Steve Murphy being named to the Order of Canada. I'm not sure if Steve's listening or not. I know he listens regularly, but anyway, listen, what a fantastic bit of news this was to hear this today, named to the Order of Canada, and his regional and national broadcasting has earned him recognition as a top-rated supper time newscast in the Maritimes, and of course, as Mark just read, sat in for me on this show over for a number of weeks. Of course, Murphy Mondays, as it became well known. So, congratulations, my friend. And Steve Murphy, by the way, will be on the show Christmas Eve. He will be joining us from 10 until 11 on December 24th next week. I look forward to having a nice chat with Steve Murphy and talking about a lot of different topics. So congratulations, my friend. Well-deserved for sure. Okay, 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today? What would you like to get into? 902-405-6000. I'm not sure what else you can say about Justin Trudeau at this point. Look, I know that it seems like we're just kind of piling on here, but what else can you do? Calls for him to resign continue. Wayne Long, New Brunswick MP, says as many as 50 fellow members of Parliament have joined the push. Trudeau found himself in political hot water this week after the resignation of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland ahead of the fall fiscal update. Imagine you've got somebody, Chrystia Freeland, who I'm no fan of Chrystia Freeland at all, and perhaps I've been too hard on her. I think she's obviously had a pretty good political career, not to suggest that it's over. But look, she rose through the ranks of prominence politically and was a faithful soldier of Justin Trudeau, did his bidding countless times. And for him on a Friday before the economic statement to tell her on Skype, not even in person, that he's going to replace her and still ask her to deliver the economic statement on Monday and then be replaced right after that was a low blow. To me, that says a lot about a lack of character on behalf of the Prime Minister. Lack of courage. To not even afford her the opportunity to meet face-to-face to have the conversation, I think is telling. And the fact that he continues to go on like it's business as usual, like as though he's done a great job, and we just don't get it. Canadians, we just don't understand. He's a good guy. The Liberals are doing a great job. We don't appreciate him. It's almost like the message is what it is at this point. If we could just appreciate how hard he works and how much he cares and what a good guy he is, and just give him a chance. And by the way, Poilievre, he's a bad guy. He's a horrible human being. He's going to do nothing but harm this country. And yes, we've run our economy into the ground, and housing is spiraled out of control, and immigration is spiraled out of control, and the deficit is exceeding $60 billion. But despite all of that, we're doing a good job. And after all, I'm a nice guy. I mean, that routine, I'm sorry, but it is over. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to resign. I don't think there's anything that would prompt him to step down at this point. What are your thoughts on the future of the Liberal Party and of Justin Trudeau, and will he step down or not? And what should be done, or what could be done with this trade war with Donald Trump, who continues to mock this country, calling it the 51st state, did it again yesterday. And how serious or lack thereof do you think that this government is taking Donald Trump with all of this? What should be done? Thank goodness the premiers are taking the bull by the horns to a degree. Certainly Doug Ford seems to be championing this. Somebody needs to convince the Americans that this would be a bad deal for them as well. And to me, that's the only plan of attack. You're not going to charm Donald Trump at this point. You have to demonstrate why this would be harmful to Americans and to American business and to American business leaders. That's how you will have this fixed, or not, or have Trump reverse his tact on this. To me, that's the only way. Because, again, he's not a reasonable person, obviously. 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. Tony, hello.
Good afternoon, Todd. You got me going. Hey, listen, I've been telling you for months, and you can't deny this other than you were away, that the Liberals were mortgaging the future of the next 2-3 generations in Canada, constantly doing this. And people were laughing at me. He's just that dumbass American. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Well, now you see the spin here. As far as, I want to talk about both leaders that we're talking about here. The Prime Minister, he's showing the hubris, the same type of hubris that the current President of the United States showed when he was going swirling down the toilet. He wouldn't get out of the way. Yeah. And now you got number 47, who was number 45, who's going to really make a mess of it. So I believe, and your system of government, and I'm not running it down, you got to look at it. You know, it's going to take a miracle to get him out of there, and I'm going to tell you why. If the NDP doesn't dump him, you're not going to get him out of there. If the NDP dumps him and the Bloc says, whoa, wait a minute now, he's got a couple things going, he's tossed us a few bones here, we'll buck him up until October, you're going to run into problems. And, you got a lot of people. I've been accused by John, the wild man, the maggot, of being a liberal. Well, I'm not a liberal, but at any rate, Polyev is not number 47. You have not heard Polyev run women down. You have not heard Polyev talk about abortion. Pretty much the same sound as Harper made when he was in office. And I remember 2015, and may he rest in peace, Rick started every show. Anybody, ABH, anybody but Harper. Well, Harper ran his course. This prime minister has run his course, but he has a ticket, a free ride ticket in his pocket, as far as I can see. I don't know how it all works. I must admit that. And let me tell you something. I also have been telling you that number 47, he started out joking. Now it's gotten a little bit more personal about this issue of the 51st state and the governor, et cetera, et cetera. I'm telling you, he's got Elon Musk there. Elon Musk has got some interest in Canada. And Elon Musk has got more money than he does. And Elon Musk, he listens to him. And I'm going to tell you right now, it wouldn't be surprised if he came forward in some sort of program to approach the Canadian electorate, the Canadian people, to actually become the 51st state. He's not joking now. He's done joking. What he said last night tells me he's done joking with it now. He's really, really thinking about it. So if you want to really screw up this country, which happens to be a great country, and you have great people, regardless of what color of Kool-Aid they drink or what tie they wear, go ahead and keep following the hubris of this man. He is not leaving unless he gets his ass kicked out. And that's all I got for you, Todd.
Okay, Tony. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care.
Have a great day.
All right, 902-405-6000. Tim, hello.
Good afternoon, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Very good. Listen, just a couple points. If I'm not a fan, as I said yesterday, of any of the three leaders, that said, if he'll treat Christina Freeland like he did on a Zoom call, imagine what he's doing to Canada or Canadians behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
The man simply doesn't care. It's about ego. It's about pride. And unfortunately, I haven't spoken to anyone yet who isn't hurting, and that's truly unfortunate. And at the end of the day, he should put his ego aside. He should put, his pride aside and resign and do the right thing. The other thing that's annoying is I may be wrong here, but I haven't heard from any MPs that are liberal in Atlantic Canada saying Trudeau must go.
Wayne Long has. He's a St. John member of Parliament, but he's not. But he's not reoffering. So there's that.
Well, he's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, you and I both, I believe we know the difference between right and wrong. If we do, they must. And as I said, there's a lot of people out there hurting. There's people out there who are losing hope, and that's truly unfortunate because Trudeau, in my opinion, he has to do the honorable thing and simply resign.
Yeah, but Tim, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, really. I mean, it truly does not. It appears though he is willing to or capable of because of his ego. A complete narcissist at this point, obviously.
Well, listen, there's a variety of reasons, but like I say, you've got Polyev, who I'm not a fan of, Jagmeet Singh, who I'll leave that alone, but I'm not a fan of, and you've got Trudeau. All three of them, and on the 20th, if Trump decides to implement the tariff, are we prepared to do what? And I haven't heard any of the three leaders step up and go, here's what we're willing to do on the 21st of January. Mm-hmm. And if we're not prepared, it could certainly adversely affect Canada. And if that happens, Canada's bigger than any of the three leaders. Get your stuff together, have a plan, and represent Canada as you're getting paid to do.
Yeah, and to the contrary, I don't think they're even thinking about it. I don't think it's even a concern right now. It doesn't appear as though Justin Trudeau takes it seriously.
Well, he should, because like I say, Trump doesn't have to give us any more warning. He's already told us this is what he's going to do.
Yeah.
If we're not prepared and we don't have a game plan, I'm not sure what the three leaders are going to do except maybe scratch their arse. But at the end of the day, it's truly unfortunate because it could leave this country in a state of flux. And, I'm not sure. I'm just lost for words because at the end of the day, to watch what he's doing and laughing and joking, yes, he's going to get well paid. Yes, he's going to leave with a pension. Couldn't care less. Just go, and then hopefully whoever assumes the position or gets elected is accountable and responsible for their decisions and represents Canadians with pride.
Okay, Tim. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. Taking your calls, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Donald, hello.
Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
I was very disappointed when I listened to your program when you come on it this morning first thing by the comments you made about our Prime Minister. It was totally very biased and asking people if they can take him seriously. Is he a serious person? He's a Prime Minister. He's won 3 elections, and I think he's done a great job. And I think he will not resign. He'll stay in power, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets re-elected again.
Well, it sounds like you're biased to me, Donald.
Well, no, it's not from a political point. I think I've just been over to Scotland on holiday last month, and people over there, they think he's a man of vision, because they've been trying over in the United Kingdom to get cannabis legislated. They can't do it, and they say your Prime Minister over in Canada, he got it done. He's a man of vision.
Wow,
he's
cannabis legalization. It means he's a man of vision. That's your talking point, Donald. Really?
Well, Harper, when he was Prime Minister, he would have never done it. And
well, I don't think if all you can hang your hat on with Justin Trudeau is he legalized cannabis, then you don't have much, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm a pensioner, and I'm a lot better off under this government with the increases they've done to the old age security, and also he's brought in this GST, HST tax break through to February. I think people should be really praising the Prime Minister for...
Well, his sorry to interrupt you, but his now defunct finance minister didn't agree with you. She thought it was a gimmick, a political gimmick. That's what she called it. So what's your response to that?
Well, I don't know. I think it's... we should just go along with what's happening and see where it takes us. Because in your program, there's so many people phoning, complaining about Trudeau, and I think they'll be sorry if they ended up getting Paul F as Prime Minister. Just remember what happened when Harper was in...
What was so bad about Harper? What did Harper do that was so bad? Well, you laugh. Tell me, what did he do that was so bad? He certainly ran a better fiscal ship, that's for sure. What did he do that was so... What did Harper do that was so horrendous?
He prorogued Parliament to avoid a vote of no-confidence. Remember that?
Yep, sure I do. And Justin Trudeau, that's on the table. He may do that as well. So despite that, what policy did Stephen Harper invoke, or how did Stephen Harper damage the country? Tell me.
I can't say that, what he did to damage.
Well, you made quite a claim that he was a terrible... You're basically slammed him, and you're criticizing me for my comments about a sitting prime minister who on Friday fired his finance minister via Skype on a day, 2 days before she's set to deliver an economic statement, and I could go on and on and on and on for 20 minutes of scandal after scandal after scandal of this government has been embroiled in. And you can't come up with one thing that Stephen Harper did that hurt the country, yet you think that Trudeau's great and Harper's horrible.
Well, it's not really saying that. I'm just saying that we should stay with what we've got. Because it won't, if you change to Paul F., he's his policies will be similar to the type of typical Tory policies, really.
You can't invoke one former policy that the Tories had that hurt the country. I asked you to tell me one, and you can't come up with one.
No, okay. Well, I'll just leave it at that. You're going to lots of people phoning in today.
Yeah. I'm trying, Donald, to give you an opportunity to state your case, but you're not succeeding. I'm just being honest with you.
They're saying this morning that can we take him seriously?
Yeah, and I stand by that. I don't think he's a serious person.
Well, I think he's serious. I take him seriously.
Okay.
I'm pretty proud he is Prime Minister, and I hope he remains Prime Minister.
Okay, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one. Let's see where we're going next. Mike, hello.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Great, well, thanks, and welcome back.
Thank you.
No trouble. Just briefly, it saddens me a great deal what's happening in Ottawa. Beyond Freeland's voice, since she's made her clear her opinion on what transpired in the last number of days regarding her position and Trudeau's decision to let her go as finance minister. But if I can reflect on the importance of his early time in office, another important voice that was raised some years ago, which had a certain amount of weight, and I think it shows the level of the lack of ethics of the man, was during the SNC-Lavalin case, and Jesse Wilson-Rayble's statement firmly that she was not going to give in to pressure, to make a decision as justice minister regarding the matter with the investigation that was going on at that time. Mm-hmm. And that was critical at the time. I certainly lost a significant amount of faith in the man after that. And briefly, before no other people are waiting, Todd, I think also, too, it says a lot to Mr. Singh that unfortunately he wanted to go into this coalition with Trudeau in good faith, but I think he may feel that his political fortunes are not going to be, shall we say, as promising, unfortunately, due to the pact that he made with the man some years ago. I think if he'd shown some willingness to compromise or not as be directly associated and try and make decisions so closely with the Liberals, then I think it might look more favorably for him in the future. But that's just seen for another day, I guess.
Okay, thanks for your comments, Mike. Appreciate it. Take care. Okay, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Look, I just can't. I don't know how I can come away with any other mindset other than Trudeau's just he's obviously just not a serious person. When you look at everything that's gone on and you listen to, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to hear the speech that he delivered last night to his party faithful, but he's acting like it's business as usual, like nothing really is going on. And his old antics and this levity and this cheerleading is going to work. It's just unbelievable, in my opinion, and that's why I don't think he's a serious person. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. A previous caller was bemoaning Stephen Harper and his era, and I asked him to come up with some examples of things that Harper did that hurt the country. I wasn't suggesting that there weren't any. I just wondering if he had any examples. He made the statement, and he couldn't come up with one. Well, Kevin sent this email along, says, I can give you lots of examples of the Harper government. How about Veterans Affairs? And yes, that's true. Stephen Harper had a bad reputation and made some serious cuts to Veterans Affairs. That's a fact. I will give you that. So again, I wasn't saying that he didn't have any downfalls. Everybody does, but the caller was making the claim didn't have any on the top of his head. That was my point. 902-405-6000. Stephen Harper, look. He was a fiscally conservative guy and is fiscally conservative. I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. I think that we need more of that quite seriously. I don't think that there's anything wrong with running a tight fiscal ship with trimming fat. Austerity is a bad word now. Somebody who dares breathe the word austerity is that you're the boogeyman. Well, it's better than the alternative. And the alternative is a $60+ billion deficit and spending over $60 billion a year servicing debt. I don't know that that's the answer, and they call it investing. We're investing in Canada. Well, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything wrong with some fiscal responsibility. I really don't. 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Greg, hello.
Oh, hey, Todd. Look, if I can just throw out a quick compliment to you. I've been listening to you since you started this job, and you've really grown into it wonderfully, I think. I'm not a fan. I don't want to put it that way, but I really like the way you manage the show. And I just wish you a very healthy and happy new year. Because I think once saying all those nice things to you, I can now disagree with you completely.
Sure, absolutely. Please do.
Freeland.
Yeah.
I think Krista Freeland has been, this past term, less so, but up until that point in time, I'm really extremely grateful that she was the person in the room representing us in the last NAFTA negotiations. And I think Trump's comments just recently confirmed what I thought all along, and that is that she was the smartest person in the room, and her extraordinarily calm demeanor facing a couple adversaries who really had no interest in a win-win. And when you're dealing with somebody who is as narcissistic and sociopathic and just such a clown, like an unbelievably powerful clown as Trump is, you are not dealing with people who are interested in a win-win. And that's an extraordinarily difficult position to negotiate from, and I think she did a brilliant job.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I just think that perhaps that she hit her peak when renegotiating the NAFTA, but something went amiss because the fiscal guardrails that she talked about. I remember when it came to COVID, and she made a comment with COVID spending saying that get the money out the door as fast as possible, and she said, and I don't believe that Canadians would take advantage of the situation or would I just think that she was naive in a lot of ways, and I just don't think she did a good job, and I just look at the state of our finances as a result, and I get that
was inevitable. I think it was inevitable that our finances took a crash just because of COVID. I mean, all countries around the world did. And I'm not coming from this perspective as a supporter of the Liberals. I think it's high time that Trudeau goes and that a fresh face was put into the position of leader of the Liberals, somebody who is coherent, has some sensible policies. And I think anybody who does that will really outshine Poilievre, who, to me, I tend to gravitate towards the middle, soft left, soft right. But to me, Poilievre is just an empty shell. I don't see any policy coming from him at all, although in some ways I kind of hope that he does win the next election so we can stir things up and just see if the people around him are smart enough to carry him, because I don't have a lot of faith in him. But I also find it really unbelievably amusing how Poilievre and some of the people around him in the Conservative Party are constantly asking Trudeau nowadays to resign, lose the job, get out of it, move on. And I think from a political perspective, that's so lacking thought, because the Conservatives will win the next election, of course. But do they want a major majority, or do they want the Liberals to replace Trudeau now and actually maybe squeak in some extra seats to the point where their majority smaller, or, God forbid, it's a minority government? So I just find their whole reactionary response to this situation is just to constantly badmouth Trudeau, which is fair enough, but not offer anything at all as far as policy because they don't have to. Just bad-mouthing Trudeau is enough for them to win the day. And so, it'd be really refreshing if somebody in that party just, said, hey, guys, come on, let's actually start telling Canadians what we're going to do instead of just criticizing the opposition. It's pretty sickening. So I don't have a ton of confidence in him, although I do think that, we do need a change.
Well, look, he's got his 4 or 5 talking points that Poilievre continues to spew, and I'm not a fan of, and to use that term, I'm not a fan either of any politician, but I'm not sold on Pierre Poilievre either. But what I do believe is that Trudeau's day is up. Like he is, it's time for him to go and look. The carbon tax. If Poilievre were listening right now, he would chime in and say, "Look, I do have some policy, and one of them would be to axe the tax." Of course, he says that. He says curb the crime, cut immigration, build houses. So he's got his 4 or 5 talking points that he continues to rotate over and over and over with axe the tax at the top of that. But it's working. He's riding high in the polls. It's pretty clear he's going to get his shot. Greg, but listen, I take your point. I do believe, though, I'm going to disagree with you on Freeland, but we agree on Trudeau. So anyway, thanks for the call. I appreciate your comments.
You bet. Thanks.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Chrystia Freeland, look, I just find that she is just, I think her record stands for itself. Out of control spending, just out of control spending has to be reined in at some point. I get it. Everybody likes big spending governments. Shouldn't say everybody, but traditionally that is they're quite popular, and conservatives have been known for being fiscally prudent, and that's not always popular. But at some point, you need that. You need to have a balance at some point, in my humble opinion. 902-405-6000. Mike, hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi there.
Well, I think sometimes your program proves that legalizing dope wasn't a successful program. But anyway, any idea what it's like in Scotland? Like, besides not having legal dope, like, is it a bad, hard place to live, or financially troubled, or what?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
No, because I mean, you know who I am, and I don't know Donald, but that great old age pension he's living on, whew, I don't know how bad times are over in Scotland, but you know what? Poilievre made a good comment the other day, and Reagan said it years ago, and that was that the government is servants. They're not our masters. They're there to do the bidding of the public and fix the things that are wrong. And I have no love for Poilievre in one reason, and one reason only, is that he's never talked about a topic that fixes my life and many, many, many pensioners' life. $740 a month for an old age pension is a joke. Even at double that, $1,500. If you got a CPP that's half decent, I mean, it's maybe a little better of a survival tool than $740. But we got to get. That's the one thing that I'm not hearing from any politicians. As far as policies go, I think Poilievre's being smart that way, and the fact that Trudeau's destroying himself. So why put things out there that might make some of your voters have some controversy with you? He's saying, like you said, he's got his 4 or 5 talking points. They excite the public when he has a town hall. Everybody loves right off the bat he's going to axe the tax if he does it. Yeah. But, I think he's playing it safe. And he said something in one of his town halls that why is he going to start talking about his policies to maybe have Trudeau steal a couple of them? So that's something to think about too. Like, you don't want to put out all your
Yeah, you keep your powder dry, to use an old military term, right?
Yes,
That's
exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Is that why give him something that he can steal from you if you publicize it? So I don't think that him. I don't think he's being a person that's going to walk in there with no brain. I think he's being very smart. Anyway, buddy,
okay.
I'm out doing my illegal work, and I will talk to you again sometime.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. Look, in fairness, every politician has a shelf life, right? That we know that. Look at Brian Mulroney, who when he passed away recently was considered and remembered very fondly, and time tends to do that. And I'm sure that with Justin Trudeau, that'll be the same story. But everybody's got a shelf life, and you got to know when it's time to go, when it's time to exit stage left, and it's time for Trudeau to go. It's just plain and simple. To me, it's pretty evident. Everybody sees it, but him, for whatever reason. Everybody's got a shelf life, and his is up. 902-405-6000. Tanya, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Well, you?
I'm okay. Listen, the first thing I wanted to say was about Elon Musk. Now, I moved down to the States, to Florida, when I was about 17, so I was there for the late 80s and 90s. Elon Musk, if they pan over to Donald's face the last time he was jumping around the stage, he knew damn well that the only thing he was thinking was, look at this fool. I just served his purpose. Now how am I going to get rid of him? I could see it all over Trump's face. And to start bringing back some of the when Trump went weird in the late 80s, but there was also an incident with a young reporter who was up and coming. I think he was a TV announcer on a bus when Trump had that to say about grabbing women and stuff. And that little guy was never, ever seen again on the news channel. So his career was over and Trump's gone.
Yeah.
You look at Rudy Giuliano. He's over. Trump's gone. And Elon Musk, the same thing. So, I mean, I don't know how easy it's going to be to get rid of him, but he wants him gone. And I've got so many things that all going through my mind. I think his whole ridiculousness started when he left his wife for Marla Maples in the late 80s, which was 30 days, and she divorced him. So, anyways, I also heard that the crown jewels in England were moved the day Trump was elected. I don't know how true that is. I have 2 friends I went to university with over there, and they had said it was a pretty hush-hush deal, but it was happening. And as far as the conservatives, I must say I was a long time in Florida, but Harper and Mulroney, I just know that they did cut many, many little programs, but I don't remember the deficit going down. Mm-hmm. So people want to kind of know where the money is, I think. Now, I could be wrong on that deficit, but I'm just listening to something my father had said. So, there's a few things. And as far as Mr. Trudeau, I mean, in this country now, we're allowed to tell our prime minister to F off on flags. You wait, because we are going to be part of the United States. Trump, if he wants, he will send the military up. We are going to be part of the United States.
No, that'll never happen.
I would hope not.
That'll never happen.
Trump did. You think so?
Never in a million years.
How are we going to fight the American military?
Well, it's just to me that's just never going to happen. I don't even think it's worthy of a conversation, to be honest with you. I apologize, but
it's just scary. Yeah.
I wouldn't if you're spending 1 second worrying about that. I wouldn't. That's my advice. Yeah. Anyway, for whatever that's worth. Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah. All right.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. I don't take that seriously at all. To me, that's just complete and utter foolishness. Donna, hello.
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my call. Sure. I wasn't going to call, but I've heard so many people talk about stuff that it really irritated me. Anyway, Harper. When Harper was in, there was no homelessness like there is now. There was no drug. He didn't legalize marijuana like Trudeau did, and the vaping and blah, 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 blah. Canadians were much better off when Harper was in than Trudeau. We are going downhill steadily with Trudeau. We are so far in debt. And like somebody said yesterday, or even this morning, it'll be the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, and the debt still won't be paid off. Trudeau... And Pierre, I listened to his speech yesterday that he did on at the House of Commons, whatever, and he had some good talking points. If you ever listen to Pierre, he does not scream and holler like a lot of the other ones. You see them up. I watch Parliament every day. If I'm not home, I tape it. And they're up there screaming and hollering and waving their arms and blah, blah, blah. People on all sides. But Pierre, I have never seen him scream and holler and lose his temper and go on and on and on. He's normally cool and calm, and that's what you need in a good leader. And I, like Pierre, my two sisters and I, we talk every day about politics. And as far as Chrystia Freeland, when Trudeau, when she wrote up her resignation letter, what she should have done was said to Trudeau, if you don't resign, I'm going to, this is what one of my sisters said. She would have said, if you don't resign right now, this letter's going to the media. And anyway, but there's nothing worse than a woman scorned. So she was ticked off at what Trudeau did to her, the dirty way he did it. And I don't care for Freeland, but the way that Trudeau did it wasn't right. Of course, he treats all his female MPs like that anyway. And then, she was scorned. So then she said, I'm going to get back at you. So she sent the letter to the media and she spilled the beans about what was in it. And that's history. So this is what we're going through now. Anyway, I like Pierre. A lot of people don't. And I never, ever liked Trudeau. And Stephen Harper was right when he said, Trudeau is just not ready. Trudeau is arrogant. He wants everything his way.
Okay, Donna, listen, I appreciate your time.
Let you go.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. In fairness to the homeless situation, that is a Western, in the Western world, that this is happening right across the Western world. So it's certainly not unique to this country. And it wasn't happening in the way that it is during Harper's era, not to defend anybody, but this is certainly not unique to Canada. Jim, hello.
How you doing, Todd?
Well, you?
Good, thanks. Just a quick thing for you. I think when I ran for the Liberals when I was way back, twice as an MLA for the provincial Liberals, and at that time you had to be a part of, we didn't have to be, but you would be a part of the Liberal Party, which I was at that time federally. Since then I haven't been. But I can tell you that I think that following him over the years, I think that Justin's going to have two ways out. One, or not ways out, but two ways of thinking. One is, why would I quit now and go and be kicked out of the door versus why don't I run against Poilievre? And if I lose, I lose, but at least I give it all I can, and I can walk away and say I did my best. So I think that's his way of thinking. I think it might be a little, certainly personal stuff in there involved against Poilievre. But when I look at the alternative, I can't vote socialist for NDP because they're against democracy, basically. I can't vote for Poilievre because all he does is talk about slogans and personal tax. He has no strategy plan for finances. And he also has nothing for the economy. So he just basically talks in slogans and insults. So I can't vote for the, I call it the Reform Party. I think his puppet master is Preston Manning and Harper. And remember, we always said anybody but Harper. Well, now it's probably time for Trudeau, anybody but Trudeau. So, I think there's not, if you're sitting back and you're trying to say you don't want to be dragged into any particular party, but you should vote, who are you going to vote for? Well, I just told you, I can't vote for socialists. I can't vote for Poilievre. There's the Green Party. And then there's the Liberal Party left to see, because no matter who you put in there, if you put Dominic LeBlanc or somebody else as leader, it's still the Liberal brand, which is pretty well worn out right now. What do you think? Yeah, listen, I hear you. It's a conundrum that we're in politically. I agree with you. I don't like any of the options, and that sucks. Yeah. That really does suck because I don't know what to do politically, who to vote for. Federally, I don't know. But I do know if Trudeau's on the ballot, I will not vote for him. That I do know, because that much I can tell you for sure. I'll make a New Year's Eve prediction just for the fun of it and follow it up later after the New Year. My prediction is, talking to other, some liberals and stuff, I think that Justin Trudeau is going to stay as long as he can unless you get a whole bunch of ministers dropping off in his cabinet. Right now, they got a bunch of sycophants or loyal people that will hang on to him looking for a position. But I think Justin's going to stay and take on Poilievre.
Okay, Jim. Appreciate the call, pal.
Okay, Guy. Bye.
All right, take care. Thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it. I did not get to all of you. For that, I apologize. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass of the control board, doing a fine job as always. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're back tomorrow, 10 o'clock. See you then.